Thank you all for your successful completion of your Fall 2 data reports that were due Friday. I have an equally great superstar that is going to be able to present next. And as always, she brings a wealth of knowledge to our CALPADS office. So with that, I will toss it over to my esteemed and excellent colleague, Mrs. Paula Mishima, for your Sunbucks updates.
Great, thanks, Sean. And good morning, everybody. Information about Sunbucks. So first, we're really sorry that we're hitting a big change in kind of short time period. But with regards to 25 Sunbucks, the biggest change really is the introduction of this new Universal Benefits Application, or UBA, which some number of students will need to submit in order to receive 2025 Sunbucks. We just sent out a flash on Monday that has a lot of information. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that flash or digest it, but I'm just going to hit the highlights. So what is a UBA? Basically, the UBA was developed by CDE, and it's an application that is fully compliant with the federal Sunbucks requirements. Unfortunately, it's similar to, but not the same as the NSLP application, and there's basically not interchangeable, even though they look very, very much the same. We have posted the UBA template on our website, and we also actually provided the template to your student information system vendors a couple months ago, just to kind of give them a head start on perhaps getting that application online. So I start with talking about who does not have to submit a UBA, because there are a lot of students who do not have to submit this application. If you're a school who are enrolled in a CEP or a Provision 2 school, and it's in your base year, and your students are either directly certified or they're categorically eligible based on their migrant, homeless, or foster status, they do not need to submit a UBA. And of all these categorical statuses, migrant and homeless are the only ones you really need to worry about, because we provide you both foster status as well as students who are directly certified. So it's really those two program records that you want to make sure are updated, because they will make a student eligible for Sunbucks. If your school is operating under a standard counting and claiming process for your federal meals program, then students should have already submitted an NSLP application, and they do not need to submit a UBA, because the NSLP application qualifies a student for Sunbucks benefits. However, we do know that ever since California has universal free meals, it's been maybe a little difficult to get those NSLP applications from families. And in which case, we know that schools often will ask for an alternative income form, because that's less onerous to complete. And many schools have even made that part of their registration process in order to ensure that their unduplicated pupil count reflects their student population. So if that's the case and students did not submit an NSLP application in those standard counting and claiming schools, then they will need to submit an NSLP application in order to get Sunbucks benefits. So who must submit a UBA or NSLP application? It's just the opposite of what I just said. If you're in a CEP or Provision 2 school and you're not directly certified or categorically eligible, then you're going to have to submit, a student will have to submit the UBA to be eligible for 2025 benefits this summer. Likewise, if you're in a standard counting and claiming school, if the student did not submit an NSLP application and instead submitted an alternative income form, they will now have to submit that NSLP application in order to receive benefits. Okay, this slide just summarizes everything I just said, but it does add in here a little piece of information that people will be asking, which is, if you submit an NSLP application or a UBA, does that qualify you for being counted in the unduplicated pupil count for LCFF purposes? And the answer is yes. So you don't need an alternative income form in addition to either a UBA or NSLP application. However, you may do both if you'd like. It's our understanding that a lot of LEAs do include the alternative income form as part of their registration process during the spring. And under those rules, you're allowed to do so and count that application for the coming school year. So all of that remains in place. So if you want to continue that process, that's perfectly fine. But the important thing is the student will not receive benefits unless they have a UBA or NSLP application, again, if they're not directly certified or categorically eligible. Okay, so what records must LEAs submit to CDE to ensure that their students are identified as eligible and receive benefits? You basically need to keep your enrollment records in CALPADS up to date to show that students were enrolled at your school during the eligibility period, which is basically July 1, 2024, all the way through September 1st, 2025. So as long as there's an enrollment record at a school that's participating in a federal meals program anytime during that eligibility period, that meets the first criteria. The second criteria is that student then needs to obviously be directly certified, homeless, foster, or migrant. And again, of those records, the only ones that you really have control over are the homeless and the migrant records. Then this year, because of the requirement that there be a compliant application, which is either the UBA or the NSLP application, we're going to have to collect additional data through our Education Data Collection System, or EDCS, which is the system that we have been using to collect ASVAB data or data on the Civic Seal of Engagement. And the reason we have to do that is because when you guys submit a 181 or 182 record, we really don't know upon which basis that program record is being submitted. We don't know if the student submitted an alternative income form, an NSLP application, or the school district simply submitted it because the student was directly certified or categorically eligible. Since we don't know that, we're going to have to collect this separately. And we're going to try to make this as simple as possible for this year. So it's going to be called the Supplemental Sunbucks Collection, and it'll be submitted to the EDCS, just like those other ASVAB and civil engagement collections. And you will be submitting for each student who has a UBA or NSLP application, a CDS code, their statewide student identifier, your local identifier, which is really there mostly for your LEAs in case that's useful to you, and then the date the UBA was submitted to the LEA or the date the NSLP application was submitted to the LEA. Those will be two separate fields. Okay, so how and when are data submitted to the new SSBC collection to EDCS? Flash 297 that did contain some information about the new collection, but a new subsequent flash will come with all the details about EDCS and how to submit the SSBC to the EDCS. The process will basically be the same as last year for those other collections, which again will occur this year for ASVAB and the civil engagement collection. One difference, though, with SSBC is that it will remain open throughout the year. The other two collections have start and an end date. SSBC will remain open for you to continue to submit data throughout the year. Okay, now this slide I'm not going to try to talk through. It's something for you to refer to. But what it's trying to do is basically explain to you that based on when the student submits that UBA or NSLP application, it will determine whether or not that application is going to make the student eligible for 2025 summer bucks and or 2026. So you can kind of see there's a sweet spot there where if they submit an application between July 1, 2025 and September and before September 1, or on or before September 1, 2025, you actually get them eligible for two of those years. But I'm not going to, again, try to talk you through this. Look, read it. Hopefully it's understandable. We've also included another column that identifies when the student needs to submit that application to be counted for UPC under LCFF. Okay, when will the data be pulled? So both EDCS and CALPADS data for 2025 SUMBUCs will be pulled as follows. For CALPADS, it'll be monthly, and actually it started already with the first pull being March 1st. It'll be the first of every month all the way through January 1st, 2026. And the reason for that long period is that for 2025 SUMBUCs, applications that students submitted to the school would have had to be submitted by September 1, 2025. However, we're continuing to collect data from you all because we understand that once the family submits an application, it'll take you time to review it, evaluate it, and upload it to CALPADS. So that's why we're allowing the upload of CALPADS data as well as EDCS data well past the end of the eligibility period. That doesn't mean you should wait all the way till January 1st, because the sooner you get that data in, the sooner the family will receive benefits. For EDCS, again, it will be monthly, but it will start July 1 is when we're going to pull the data. We are going to open up EDCS probably at least in the next month and a half or so. So the system will be open, but we won't be harvesting data from EDCS until July 1st. Okay, so what happens to the alternative income form? It still exists. It will be needed for those schools, and there are some, who do not participate in a federal meals program at all. In order to be included in the UPC, those students will need to continue to submit the alternative income form. For all other schools, however, who are participating in a federal meals program, they don't have to use the alt income form at all. They can just use the UBA or the NSLP application. However, we understand that, as I kind of talked about earlier, the alt income form is a lot less onerous. There's no verification of it. It's just kind of an easier form. And we understand that LEAs are going to be nervous about their UPC count going down, which means less LCFF funding. So, it's up to the LEA if they want to continue using the alt income form as kind of like a way to ensure that their LCFF count or their UPC count is high. However, families need to understand that in order to get benefits for SUNBUCs, they're going to need to submit the UBA or the NSLP application. And then again, that's only those families who are not directly certified or categorically eligible. In the flash, we kind of give some guidance as to what might be best practices for this year, given that this is all rolling out fairly late. Also, the flash was also forwarded to all the nutrition services directors, but those folks have actually heard about all of this at least a month before, where our nutrition services division has been communicating with their nutrition partners. Our nutrition services folks have also been communicating with school business officers and other folks in the LEA, because we understand rolling out a new application like this isn't a CALPADS job, even though I know somehow it will fall a lot on you all, but it's a district-wide implementation that needs to be figured out. Okay, so that is the end of my slides, and I can quickly try to go through some of these questions. The first one is kind of long.
Quite lengthy question. Yeah, I don't know if you want a ticket on it, Paula. If so, I'm happy to respond to that one.
Okay, the first one by Hope, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, maybe that would be better because it's really long.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, for Lou, are the direct certification codes that equate to at or below 185% of the federal poverty level? Yes, so right now, when a student is directly certified by CALPADS, it includes the Medi-Cal, either free or reduced for Medi-Cal. Both of those count for SUNBUCs. Okay, Rebecca, do preschool age students who have an NSLP on file also receive SUNBUCs? If the student is enrolled in a school and they have all the proper things, then yes. Can the UBA be used in place of the alternative income form if the form is completed by families in 25-26 school year? I want to be clear, in the yes, it can be. And also another thing about the forms that I just confirmed with our nutrition services folks, a family just needs to submit one UBA for the different kids in their family. If all the kids are enrolled at the same school, they just need to submit one form, because if you look at the form, it has you list all the kids. Why would we add this time of the school year? This is a huge burden on school districts. I agree completely. As you may, last year, basically, we received a waiver from this requirement, and we were allowed to use the alt income form instead of the fully compliant Sunbucks application. It was expected that the waiver would be good, allowed for the next year, meaning this year, but it was not at the last minute. So we need to continue to update CALPADS with all the preschool students in complete CAP stack. That, I don't know. You need to do CAP stack. You don't need to update CALPADS with preschool students unless they're special ed students. Does the UBA replace that alt income form starting in 25-26? It can, if your district chooses not to use the alt income form. If your district does not participate in a school meals program, then you will have to continue using the alt income form. Can you provide a link to the guidance or flash regarding exit? Okay, that's another question. Okay, this thing keeps jumping around. I would like to hear the answers to her questions, time permitting. Yes, I will try to do that. Are UBAs acceptable in a CEP base year to free reduced status for 4 years? The UBAs are acceptable in the base year, the CEP base year. I think there's no CEP base year. What there is an LCFF base year, but yes, the UBA would be acceptable. But you would need to collect it annually. So that's one difference, is that the whole idea about a base year kind of goes away with Sunbucks, because Sunbucks needs to be, students need to be determined eligible annually. So even for the Provision 2 schools, in the base year, you use the NSLP application, and to make it really efficient and easy to understand, in the non-base years, you would need to use the UBA. And for CEP, the whole idea about base years just goes out the window, and pretty much you just have to collect the UBA annually from all students. Does the CDE anticipate the Sunbucks eligibility process, specifically the use of the UBA for both Sunbucks and CIP? Oh my gosh, you know what? We hope it does not. It's Sunbucks is in federal law, and some of this craziness is due to the fact that it's in statute, which makes it, from an administrative standpoint, more difficult, for example, to make the Sunbucks application and the NSLP application exactly the same. It's partly because the way the law is written. But as you all know, who knows what's going to happen in general with anything, any federal program. But as of now, that's our expectation. Do we anticipate the UBA to replace the alternate coming year? I think in 26, 27. The UBA is all going to, whatever it is this year will be the same. It's up to the state of California if they want to somehow not allow the alternative income form anymore. That would have to be done in statute. But if it's done in statute, they would still need the alternative income form for those schools that are, again, not participating in a federal meals program. Okay, if we have an alt income form for some students and a UBA for others, is that okay? Or should it be one or the other throughout the district? That's totally a local decision. If we make our UBA form, what fields information must be included on the form? It needs to be absolutely consistent with the template that is provided. So anything that's on the template would need to be included on the form. We are an IS school. The 2025 SUMBUCS program does not apply to us. Is that correct? If you're an independent study school, so you are not participating in a federal meals program, which technically you're not supposed to be, then yes, SUMBUCS wouldn't apply to you. Again, it all depends. We know that some internal IR independent study schools are structured in such a way that they actually do participate in a federal meals program, in which case all these same rules apply. In order for students to get SUMBUCS this year, they need to have a UBA form or NSLP application by the end of the school year. They need to have one submitted to you all by September 1st, 2025, which is well past your end of the school year. So from a practical matter, yes, they would need to get it into you before school ends. Preschool students in state-funded program but not SPED are not reported to CALPADS. Should we report them to CALPADS and the FR for purposes?
Preschool students should be reported to CASTAC unless they are preschool for CALPADS and have a special education requirement for them to be reported into CALPADS. Those are the only preschool students that should be reported to CALPADS unless there is a qualifying program and your LEA is serving preschool students with those programs. We're not asking LEAs to change their current business practices. However, you should seek towards your LEA administration for what you are reporting and why. And this is why we go over the reports that should be reviewed by all of your administrators.
So we probably should put out just clarifying guidance, because some LEAs have enrolled preschool students in CALPADS that aren't special ed necessarily. The thing about it is that if they do have an enrollment at a school that is participating in a federal meals program, we will be pulling them. There's not an age limit or a grade limit as to who is eligible for SUNBUCS. And as you might recall, under pandemic EBT, there was a whole other program that was specifically for childcare. That does not exist. And so they're being very lenient about funding those younger kids through SUNBUCS if possible.
That's correct. And that's why we mentioned if they have a qualifying program, then, and that school is serving preschool students, then therefore, yes, they should submit that student enrollment for preschool. But again, that is dependent upon your LEA. So we keep getting the question of whether or not preschool students.
You're not required to. If students are there, though, they will basically be pulled for SUNBUCS. Will there be a UBA template provided? Yes, there is. I'm very much answering that question.
Thank you, Paula.
Okay, I answered.
It's going to be the end of our questions for you at this time. Again, please review the flash that was sent out earlier this week for SUNBUCS. Additional information, we will have it for our May regionals as previously scheduled for all of next school year's program updates.